Welcome to a special Patreon episode of Salsido Paranormal. Uh, these are, of course, now being called Trick or Treat. These shows are basically just an open conversation between myself and anyone that is listening in Discord that wants to join me to talk about all things paranormal and or food. And I believe that covers it. Just for a starter topic, if anyone wants to join in, we were just talking about the topic of in a previous recording here tonight. We were talking about channeling and possession as different things and all the different aspects of those. And I definitely want to thank Jen, the Arcane Observer, for helping out so much with these shows. That she was able to join me there for that one, and really grateful for her being here. Speaking of, Jen,
it was so fun, James. I had to let my dogs out, and I'm still kind of doing that. But yeah, I'm making dinner and stuff myself. I'm actually making pork ribs. So that's what I'm cooking tonight. I was fortunate with that, and I'm having pork ribs. And so I'm working on cooking those. And no, it's an awesome topic. I really enjoyed talking about it. It's so rare to hear about people talking about it. And without any type of agenda with it necessarily, ideally. I mean, hopefully we did not have an agenda. I mean, I was hoping that it would just kind of come across as being open-ended. And there are so many different interpretations of how this experience occurs that we were talking about with possession and in cases of channeling and mediumship. And I'd like to be available to all of those, to listen to anybody's experience of it. If anybody has any experiences of anything in the paranormal, I look forward to hearing it. But yeah, I'm in the middle of cooking and moving dogs about, but I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, always glad to have you here. And it's really, this is one of the amazing things to me is that I don't think I've ever really had an experience that is, you could say, is a full blown channeling. Or I know I had a couple, and I don't talk about this all the time, but a couple of times where I think there was an attempt at possession of me somehow by something, and I was able to fight it off both times. And this was many years ago now, when I first moved into this apartment, actually. And but I've been very lucky. I haven't had too many negative experiences, and those are a couple of the only ones I've had. But and I don't even know what they were. That's the amazing thing is here, like, because I've sort of been outside of the. How do I say this? I also, for many years now, I've always figured there's just all kinds of things that go on out there, all kinds of names for all kinds of beings, entities, and all that. And so I didn't automatically think demon. I just thought, oh, I don't like this. There's someone in my mind, in my body, and they're not welcome here. And I just had to, I don't know, gather all my energy and just push them out. And the one time I remember this the most clearly is when it happened. I heard this like a shout, like someone yelling the word no. And looking at the chat here, this is like this is similar to a good friend of the show here, Michael Strange, does a show sometimes on Fridays where he lets everyone join him. And this is similar to that, just all things paranormal here. That's the topic of this show, open-ended, and also just all things food, just so we can have a balance. And if things start to get too heavy, then we can switch to that or whatever we want to do. But it's just so that everyone can join in, even if they haven't necessarily had a paranormal experience or whatever. That doesn't matter. It's just mainly a chance for everyone to get to talk that may not get to talk with each other elsewhere. So, but yeah, it's I've only had that one experience where I really remember it clearly now, still to this day. And I heard this like deep voice kind of shout out like no, like they were angry when I sort of, however I did it, I don't even know how I did it exactly, but pushed them out and made them leave. And so that's about the closest I've had to anything that similar to what we've been talking about, as far as I can remember anyway. But yeah, it's an amazing topic. So welcome to everyone there in the chat. I see you all there, and thank you for listening in. And yeah, it's this is quite the topic. So, thank you again. I see everyone there, and let me click on this, and we'll be having someone join us here. And luckily, we should be all set. Hopefully, that works. And hello, Matt's Owl. That's Matthew in California. So welcome to the show, and whenever you're ready to unmute, you're welcome to. And if not, I can keep on going until then.
Hey, James, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good. You sounds good.
What's up, man?
Just glad to have you here, and always happy to hear from you and what your thoughts are. For anyone who doesn't know, too, real quick, Matt's Owl has his own show, Temple of the Owl, over on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, along with Jen and I, the Arcane Observer. And I am ashamed to say I haven't listened to all of your shows, but I've listened to quite a few, and I really enjoy them. And I do want to be on one of your shows with you someday. I just, as you know, I lost access to my second Discord account, and so I need to get back on your server with you sometime as well. I've been meaning to ask you about that, to get an invite for that again, because I lost access to 2 accounts now on Discord. But thank you for being here.
Yeah, man. Thank you for that shout out, man. That's cool. Thanks, man. Yeah, we'll get together on that. I actually called first talking about food. For dinner, I had chicken drumsticks barbecued with teriyaki sauce.
Oh, that sounds good.
And some mashed potatoes and some like asparagus and zucchini and mushrooms, kind of barbecued up.
That sounds really good. I got paid this weekend, so I'm going to be making something in the crock pot soon, probably some kind of pork or chicken with barbecue sauce and veggies. I love to do that because it's the easiest thing for me to do. I just get whatever meat is on sale, and then I get usually a bunch of mushrooms actually, and then sometimes peppers, and then sometimes carrots and potatoes, just whatever is on sale or looks like it's good, and I just toss it in there with some barbecue sauce and some water, and let it cook for a good, I cook it on low, so I let it cook for like a good 12 hours or more, and make everything nice and soft, and it's really good that way.
Yeah, man. The key to the crock pot is putting liquid.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I always put water in there after I put the barbecue sauce on, so that everything gets the flavor of it, but it's not all sticky when it's all done. It's all just in there.
Yeah, man. I called. I'm glad you're doing this like foods and paranormal thing, because you kind of gave me like a platform to talk about something. I've been thinking about this stuff for a while now, and just talking about food and eating. And this is kind of like a little topic here. But I've been thinking about this, like as I'm getting older, I'm kind of realizing, I have like not digestive issues, but like not being able to digest the food the same. And so I started doing something. I started realizing like you don't really chew your food anymore. We're in this like high, fast-paced society where you only have, at lunch you only have 30 minutes to eat your break, and you just scarfing down your food. And I realized like I wasn't really chewing up my food very much. So I started like to think about it and actually like chew my food. And what I found was, the digestive issue kind of went away because you're chewing up your food more.
Right.
But what I found out was, go ahead.
Oh, and I was just agreeing. Yeah, that makes sense.
What I found out was like when you chew your food and you actually like enjoy it and like taste the flavors, and then it kind of like puts you in the moment. It brings you to the now. And I talk about how we always talk about the past or the future. We're always thinking about the past or the future, and we, being now in the moment. And I feel like there's magic there, and just in being in that moment. And so, actually slowing down and like concentrating on chewing your food, it kind of like brings you to the now, and it's a magical experience. So I was kind of talking about that, just like slowing down and just kind of like enjoying your food.
Yeah, I think that's important, and especially, I mean, when you're able to get good food and it's not just junk food, especially, which is so often these days easier said than done because of budgets and availability and just all these factors that are there. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was just trying to think of what I had for dinner tonight. I just had funny enough, you mentioned digestive stuff. I've had a stomachache on and off the last few days. It's gone today, but I had no appetite for most of the last couple of days. So today I just started off. I had soup. I had a can of a couple of small cans of soup. I had one that was like beef and vegetable. That was pretty good, and I had one that was creamy chicken noodle, which is actually also pretty good. And but again, they're canned, so I'm sure they're not great. But I was thinking easy stuff I could just get out and have if I was still not feeling well. And those worked for now, but I can't wait to go to the store and actually get some fresh stuff and like I said, cook it up in the crock pot.
Yeah, Campbell's like the chunky soups. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something like that. Yeah.
They're good for like a light lunch, but you can getting the ingredients and making your own soup is probably better. But
yeah,
I understand the microwave one.
Yep. Yeah. So
Or
that's what I had to do.
put it in the stove, or put it on a pot on the stove.
Yeah, I'm bad. If it's like room temperature, I'll just open the can, get a spoon, eat the soup. I don't need it hot.
There you go.
So yeah, but that's one of the few advantages of living alone is that you can just get into things. And I always joke that when I make like a pot of spaghetti, that first serving of spaghetti, it does not land on a plate or in a bowl. I just eat it from the pot. You heard it here first, everyone that listens to these podcasts. I do that. I'll eat it right from the spaghetti pot.
Yeah,
So.
I think about stuff like that when I'm doing something, and I'm like, James would just do. How would James do this? And I try to think about like how to help you out.
Yeah. If it's just me, why get a plate? Why get a bowl? Then when I could possibly drop a spoonful of whatever on the counter or on the floor. It's like, you know what? No, I'll just pass. I'll just put the pot on the counter and get a spoon, and I'm all set. But yeah. So, yeah. It's I'll be making spaghetti at some point soon too, because I have ground beef and I have noodles for it already, and sauce. I just need to get some cheese because I don't have any cheese.
You put spaghetti.
What's that? Sorry, you were cutting out there a little bit.
Mushrooms in spaghetti sauce?
Yes, I do that. I do that too sometimes. Yep. Yeah. I love mushrooms.
It works. I put olives in my spaghetti sauce too.
Yeah, it always feels special when you add the mushrooms and olives. It always feels like you're really ranging it up, because it doesn't happen all the time, but it does feel special when you do that.
Yep. Yeah. There's nothing I like to add once in a while, and I haven't heard too many people do this, but I've done it mainly because like it's one of those. Okay, what do I have to eat? All right, I have noodles, I have sauce, and then I have these cans of peas, sweet peas. I wonder. So I added that to spaghetti one time, and you know what? It was actually not bad. It tasted pretty good. So.
Yeah, it reminds me of like find out what you have in your fridge and then ask the AI to make you a recipe.
Yeah, I just
those ingredients.
Look in the cupboard. Okay, I've got a can of peas and I got a can of sauce, and I got a box of noodles. All right, here we go. We're gonna see if this works. And I don't do it every time. It's not something I really, really, really like. But for like when I'm just trying to make a meal out of whatever I have left, it works for those times.
Lacey, you don't like peas, so it's not going to work for me.
Okay.
I like peas though; they're okay. It's a hit or miss.
I also once in a while I'll just use like peas and then elbow macaroni, and I'll make like a pasta salad with those, and then some cheese, and then like some kind of a sauce, like an either like ranch or like mayonnaise or whatever I have. And that works okay too for when I really want something like that. I don't want to pay a ton of money to get it at the store in the deli.
Pasta salad is just, I love pasta salad. Now I have a question. I'm gonna ask Matt's owl if that's cool. I'm gonna ask you, like, I want to hear about what have you experienced as far as like what would be, I guess, usually categorized being paranormal, but any unusual experience. What have you experienced? And if you haven't had a paranormal experience, what are some ideas you have about the paranormal in general?
That's a good question. Talking about earlier tonight with like possessions and stuff. I never encountered it like that. I feel how you guys were saying the difference between possession and channeling. Because sometimes, there's like what's that guy's name? Bashar. He's like he's this guy. He's channeling this thing named Bashar, and like you said, he acts different. He talks different. I feel there is a difference between channeling and possession. Possession being, how you say it, not welcome. Like it comes and you can't do anything to stop it.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too. You can go over stuff if you want to, but for anyone that hasn't heard, there are a couple episodes. They're ways back now, so you're welcome if you want to go over them and get the stuff again. But you don't have to. But we did a couple episodes. What was it? A couple of years now ago. With you, Matt, or where you shared some of your experiences. But
I don't know, man. We've been friends for like 6 years.
That's so weird. It doesn't. I remember like it was just like yesterday that we just started talking on Mike's show and everything on Trouble Minds, and then started talking here. So, but yeah, I guess it's been a while. Wow.
Yeah, I've told my stories on here and Mike's show, the Trouble Minds, shout out. And I've told this story before too. I had what I called like a sleep paralysis story, and I called it sleep paralysis. But I can see how people that have sleep paralysis can see it as like a demon possession or maybe even like a UFO abduction, with like entities in the room and you not being able to move. So I had this story a while back, and it was when I was working and I was taking my wife to work and all this stuff, and I was really only getting like 3-4 hour naps. I wasn't getting like full sleep.
Oh yeah.
And so my sleep schedule was changed. And so one night, I'm just laying there by myself, and I was laying in bed, and I was laying on my back, and I felt something walk into the room and stand next to the bed, like it was looking over me. There was nothing there. I couldn't see it. I couldn't move. I couldn't like sit up and see what it was. And I heard it. Like I heard the footsteps. Like I heard the creaking across the carpet. I felt the pressure of the weight of it moving next to me. And I had the TV on, so it was light enough, and I was able to kind of see into I have a mirror closet, but there was nothing there in the room with me. And I fell back asleep. I woke up, and then I remembered that, and I wasn't dreaming. I know I was awake, but I couldn't move. But then I looked. I was like, okay, I've heard of these stories before. I've heard of my other friends and people talking about waking up, not being able to move, and things in the room with them, entities. And so I looked it up, and of course, I've seen there's all kinds of demon stories, UFO stories, right? And what about the normal answer? You guys want to know what the normie answer is, right? The normal, what Google will say is the normie answer is that when you don't get your sleep schedule is changed or messed up, you can have this thing where your body is asleep, but your mind is not. And that's what they're saying what sleep paralysis is.
Right.
And so I took that normal answer. Hey, my sleep schedule was messed up. So I just kind of pushed that off as nothing there really. It was just a weird dream maybe. But then a couple months later, same thing, same scenario. I still wasn't getting good sleep. And same scenario, I was in my room by myself. But this time I was laying on my stomach. And it was summer. I had the blanket kind of over my back. And all of a sudden, same thing. I woke up. I couldn't move. And this thing came in the room, and I felt the carpet. I felt it walking into the room. And no one was there. And it stood next to my bed. And then all of a sudden, I felt it climb into bed with me. And, I felt it, one knee on one side of me, and one knee, I felt his hands and pushing down on the bed. And I couldn't move. And, it got on top of me, and it kind of straddled me like it was on my back. And I had this weird sensation of going up and down my spine. And I fell asleep, and I woke back up. And that feeling is I don't want to say it's like I don't know how to say it. Like I feel violated. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I felt
Oh yeah.
I really felt violated. Like I couldn't move. I didn't know what it was. And so after that kind of having that kind of experience, I started believing in things like succubus and incubus as part of these entities that can move in and out. And maybe that's what happened to me. I think it was a succubus that got me.
Yeah, or at least tried to or thought about it. I mean, that is wild. It's one thing too when you see something or you hear something, but then when you feel something by you physically, it makes everything just, it's like, okay, this stuff it's there. Like, okay, you can say I didn't see what I thought I saw, I didn't hear what I thought I heard, whatever. But when you feel some kind of physical contact, that changes everything. Even if you had multiple experiences, I think it can still change everything. I had that years ago when I first moved into this apartment. My whole story with the little girl that was trying to, or not even little girl, young teenager, maybe like just teenager, who was trying to tell me her story of how she passed. First thing that she did was when I moved in here, she sat down on my bed in my living room. I had a couch bed in the living room, and I was asleep, but I started to wake up because I felt someone sit down on the side of the couch bed and lean against my leg. And I live alone, and so I started to wake up right away because it's like that's not supposed to be happening. And so, of course, I said out loud, who's there? Is anyone there? And I heard this young girl's voice laugh and say, how can there be anyone here when you've double locked the door? Which I had just done before I laid down. And, of course, that started waking me up real fast, and I sat up straight, opened my eyes. And by the time I did that and was all up and everything, the pressure, as I was sitting up, the pressure lifted off of the bed and off of my leg. And by the time I looked up and opened my eyes and everything, there was no one there. And I sat up real fast, I can tell you. And there was no one. I didn't see anyone or hear anyone moving away. Even though it's a tiny apartment. So, I mean, not tiny, but a small apartment. So I would have heard anyone, even if they had been out of the room, I still would have heard them leaving the room and running away if they had done that. So it's just, it's different when you actually feel physical contact with something else that should not be possible.
Yeah, man, I like that story. It's creepy. It's kind of funny too. But with my story, that story's hard for me to tell. Because I've told it on Mike's show on Troubled Minds, but it's a hard story to tell because, like I said, I felt different afterwards. And just to finish off the story, real quick, the end of the story, is I first I didn't want to tell anyone that story, because it was kind of embarrassing.
Right.
But I didn't want to tell anyone, and so I got up the courage that I wanted to tell my wife, and I told her. I told her the story, and she was like, it's weird. A couple weeks ago, I had something like that happen to me, where I couldn't move in my sleep. But I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to sound weird. And
Yeah.
so I'm wondering if it's the same entity. If it's an entity, I have no answers. This one is definitely. Is it in my mind? Was it an actual entity from another dimension? Came into our dimension? These kinds of questions that I have, but I don't know. So I'm just kind of thinking, but the weird thing is that I know that these stories are not just it's not just something that happened to me. These paranormal with these sleep paralysis stories, they've been around for a really long time, and I wonder if that has anything to do with like what we were talking about, demonic possession. Because it definitely wasn't something that I invited in. It was something else. It wasn't channeling. It
Right.
was I was a victim of it. I wasn't asking for it. So yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of other people that have these stories too. So it's a great topic. Thank you guys.
Yeah, no problem. And you're welcome to stay or however you want to do that. But yeah,
If there's no, I mean, I'm gonna meet up and get something to drink. But because I have another thing.
yeah, no,
I hope I answered the question for you, Jen. Thanks, James.
yeah. No, it's wild because, like I said, that one experience I had that I can remember clearly, there was some other presence that was inside my body and my mind, and it was mainly concentrated like in my head. I could feel that it was there. And it was trying to, I don't know if it was trying to take over or if it was trying to take energy or what it was doing, but I could just feel it was negative. And I just used all my strength or whatever I had in my mind and had to push it out and kick it out. And so I guess it's weird. It's weird too how these things can slip your memory until something reminds you of it. Because I don't always think about this. Probably because it's not the most fun thing to think about, but it's easier now to think about and talk about that it's been years. But it's just these things do happen to people, and I do think there's so much of that that stigma of just thinking that people are going to think that you're weird or worse. But if you mention anything like this to anyone, that who knows how many experiences people have had throughout history that just never got shared at all with anyone. I really wonder if it's just things happening all the time everywhere.
That's why I appreciate like having platform show like this, and like I said, just telling a story like that, it takes courage, and especially saying it over, I don't know who's listening, so but it takes courage, and I'm glad that we're doing this stuff together, just telling stories, and even if we tell the same stories over and over again, it kind of it brings back those memories, and it helps you remember those stories.
Yeah, and you never know who is going to be listening the next time you tell it. That one before that will jog their memory or get them to think that it's okay to think and talk about these things. So yeah, I think it's fine to tell these over and over again because of that, and because there may be people that have ideas about something you've been talking about for years, but they just hear it for the first time, and they ask a question. I've had that a couple of times over the years. I've been a guest on other shows to share my experiences, and every once in a while, someone will ask a question on one of those shows that it's like, wow, I didn't think of that at all, but that makes sense. That's possible. And I love when that happens because It's no one person can think of everything. So that's why I think it's great and it's important to do that, to share these over and over again. So
yeah, man. Like wish there was stuff like this. Like when I was a kid, like I had someone to talk to, because I didn't. And so like yeah, if I could help one person, think about things differently or open their mind, or even like you said, like I was talking about just opening to being open to the conversation and talking about it out loud. It's kind of like a therapy, so it feels good to get this stuff off my chest. So yeah, if I can encourage one person to tell their story, I want to hear that story.
yeah, definitely. It's and I do hope someday we get to the point where, because some shows do get there where they get emails and phone calls and stuff that where people share their stories, and they get to a point where they can never keep up. And I'm hoping to get to that point someday with this show as well. Because finding the stories online to share is good, and I think that's still important to do that. But I'm always happy to hear from people that I can get to know over time, exchanging communications with them, and whether it's email or on Discord or whatever it may be. It's been one of the most amazing parts of this is connecting with people and making so many great friends because of it too.
Yeah, man. Thing real quick, if I have time.
Yeah, you're welcome to stay as long as you want to.
Well, I was going to talk about this. Because I was talking about eating your food, chewing your food, and I was going to talk about something that people do this, but when I grew up, I was never. I wasn't like growing up in a religious household, so I wasn't forced in any way. But I was at other people's houses, and sometimes they would do this thing where they say grace over their food. And I never really got into it. I never really thought about it. But until recently, I started thinking about what it is and what it means. And so I started doing this thing where it's your own beliefs, it's your own what you're thinking about. But it's just showing gratitude, like showing the universe that you have gratitude for the substance, for food. And so saying something, as simple as just, thank you for this food, thank you for the substance, thank you for another day. Blessed be. That's it. It doesn't have to be, a whole long thing about thank you this, thank you that. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very simple. And what I started doing was I started to, and I wouldn't even say it out loud. I would say it in my head. Sometimes I say it out loud, but I put my hands over my food and just kind of, basically just show gratitude for having it. And what I realized was why they call it grace is because you're putting, you're gracefully getting the food, the energy from the food into your body. And so you're putting your energy into the food before you even consume it. And then that way, when it gets into your body, it digests better and it gives you the nutrients better. But I think just doing that, just doing this, showing gratitude before you eat, I think that I found out that it's very helpful. It's actually magical. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think that there's probably a lot of things that have been started over the years that have been sort of, the meaning has been lost in a lot of cases, and or never even maybe fully understood. But then when you do them and you start thinking about why you're doing them, that's amazing. That does make sense, and I think that's a great thing to do. I never thought of that at all either. I like that a lot.
Yeah, man. So just next time, just thinking about me or thinking about when you're about to eat, like I said, it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It could be so simple as just thank you for the food right before you eat, and kind of just showing, like I said, showing the universe gratitude for the substance and just being alive. So I love it because it's like that's perfect for what you guys are saying, talking about food and paranormal experiences. So thank you for putting the show together and doing this platform. It's a perfect trick or treat.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing this from now on, I think, once a month, the first Saturday of every month, at around or just after 11 p.m. Eastern, so that's 8 p.m. Pacific, where Matt's Owl is at, actually. So, you're always welcome, and we'll be doing this from now on. And if we get enough interest over time to where a ton of people want to join in, then we'll do this more often. But I think right now, once a month is a good way to go.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. Looks like we got someone else coming up, hopefully.
Sounds good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna go. I do appreciate the show, and like I said, thank you for giving me that platform to talk about those two things.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you as always for sharing everything. And yeah, everyone, please check out Matt's Owl, Temple of the Owl, his podcast. I will I would say I would include a link in the episode description, but this is only going to Patreon. But I will put a link in the chat. Of course, I'm sure a lot of you listeners that pay attention to my show are already big fans of the Double Minds Network, and are probably already aware of Temple of the Owl. So if you're not, please check it out. And then, like I said, someday I'll join him over there. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, man, I'll reach out to you. Thanks, James. Have a good night. And thank you for all that.
Hey, Matt. It's so fun to hear your accounts and stories, and it's so interesting. Just really fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Too.
Good night. Thank you. Yeah. Sounds good. I see you in the chat there. White like a ghost. But yeah, so it's these experiences are so important to talk about, and who doesn't like food? I figure it's a good mix, and we can go back and forth and go from there. So egg rolls sound amazing. Jen, I saw you in the chat there. You mentioned egg rolls, and
yeah,
I had some a little while back, and they were amazing.
Yeah, I just have these frozen egg rolls, and so I'm gonna have that with these pork ribs I have. I'm gonna barbecue those, and then I've been barbecuing them, and then I have that with the egg rolls. But no, it was so good to hear from Matt's Owl. I just love hearing his account. Like, just anything he has to say is really fun. I really enjoy it. And then, it reminded me of something. I'm looking forward to hearing from White Like the Ghost. That'll be fun. But I had this one account that was really bizarre, where I was staying with this individual that I met in school. It was a friend of mine, and she was really nice and everything, and I was hanging out over at her house, and we had friends over and everything, and I wasn't going to drive back home, and she was like, well, I could have, but she was like, oh no, she should stay the night. And I was like, okay, yeah, that'd be much easier because it was late. And I was like, and I thought that she was a very nice person, and she was a nice person. But then this was literally the scenario. She had a pallet, and I laid down. Hey, White Like the Ghost. I'm gonna tell a story real quick, and I want to hear what you had to say too. But like, I laid down, and it was late, and I was so tired, and I already talked with her mother, and her mother was a really interesting person, completely steeped in like esoteric things and stuff like that. Anyway, I laid down, and she started telling me this strange story. She said, she started speaking out of nowhere. She said, you're walking down a sidewalk. And I was like, yeah. And she began to, and she said, you're walking down the sidewalk, and she described the environment around it and so on and so forth. And she described like a crack in the sidewalk, and looking into the crack in the sidewalk. And what do you see down there? Essentially, she was like doing this hypnosis experience. Completely unexpectedly is what she was doing. We were both laying there getting ready to go to sleep, and she was relaying this hypnotic sort of tempo. She didn't do it. I mean, I was not expecting it at all. It was so bizarre, as if I was being put into involuntary hypnotic state to basically, as I guess, I don't know what she was doing or why she was doing it. It was just so bizarre, but it happened. And she was involved in like regressive therapies and things like that, but it was so strange. So, I mean, people can also influence unexpectedly, in a way. I had to literally tell her to stop so I could go to bed. That's how
Yeah.
bizarre it was. So strange. Anyway, White Like the Ghost, it's so good to see you. I'm going to pause out and check on my food and love to hear your story.
Yeah, can you guys hear me all right?
Yep, you're good. Thank you for
Yes.
joining us.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So I've had really similar sleep paralysis episodes. Like, was that Mattal that was talking about that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had several different kinds of episodes in my sleep throughout my life. And earlier on, like, I don't get these as much. I don't get these anymore, but I used to have these dreams that were, I mean, I'd have to call it a nightmare because it was very unpleasant, and I'd usually be in a creepy place. And there would be like the last one I remember was there was these two women, these beautiful women, and one of them like came to me in this, it was almost like a dusty, if you can imagine, like a dusty gray haunted castle sort of place. That's kind of the setting that this dream was in. And this first woman comes to me and is communicating with me, I want to say telepathically, not using verbal words, but I was very clearly getting a message. And she was saying, you need to get out of here before she gets here. You have to leave. And I was like, well, I would leave, but I don't know how. I'm stuck here. I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know how to wake up. I think I kind of knew that I was asleep in my bed in some sense, but I didn't know how to escape this weird nightmare that I was having. And she's like, you gotta leave, you gotta leave, you gotta get out of here, hurry. Oh no, it's too late, she's here. And then it's like an identical twin shows up to that first woman. And she starts getting closer and closer, and she doesn't say anything to me. She's not communicating with me like the first one did. But she was, like I said, very beautiful. Like, I was attracted to her. And she gets closer and closer, and there was definitely like a trance-like sense of longing for this woman. She got closer to me, almost like in the movies when a vampire kind of floats on their tippy toes across the floor,
Yeah.
Until she was right in front of my face. And then I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. And instead of just a normal looking beautiful woman, her eyes became this like crackling green electric fire. And her teeth were pointed now. And this crackling green fire was coming out of her mouth now and her eyes. And now I'm paralyzed, and I can feel this. I'm being held in. I'm standing up, but I can't move. And somehow, like, I don't know if I want to call it my like life force or something is being drained from me horribly. And it's just the most horrible feeling. I don't know if you've ever been like mildly poisoned, or maybe I'd compare it to like feeling really sick. Like maybe the first time I ever smoked a cigar and I got sick, but a lot worse than that. Just being totally drained and feeling very sick, and being unable to escape this situation. And then at some point, I mean, I woke up from it, like, and I remember that evening, I would fall back asleep. I would wake up feeling sick, just like I did in the dream, right? And then when I'd fall back asleep, I'd be stuck there with her again, and she would do it again to me, and this kept happening throughout the night. And then I woke up in the morning just feeling terrible, you know, just horribly exhausted. And, this dream was kind of recurring. This would happen, you know, and I was like, is this just a dream, or is this something that's really happening to me? I mean, the way I felt when I woke up in the morning made me feel like this was something that was really happening to me. I mean, I was definitely having physical consequences because of these dreams, these nightmares that I was having, you know. And, you know, I'd wake up more exhausted than I went to bed the night before.
Yeah.
And anyway, this happened, you know, off and on for years, maybe a couple of years. And after that last time, I went to see this guy in Trout Lake, Washington, named James Gilliland. He has like this retreat, this ranch in Trout Lake, Washington, where you can go and look at UFOs, and they do sky watching at night, where he calls in the UFOs and stuff, kind of like the CE5 protocols. And they do like qigong meditations and stuff, and he's really big on communicating with what he calls, like, I don't know, enlightened beings or higher dimensional beings. Like, he talks about Mother Mary, like the Catholic figure, Mother Mary. He talks about Baba G. He talks about, I think he's referring to what we think of as Jesus when he says Yeshua ben Joseph. But lots of figures like that, you know, and he has these, when he describes them, they're very wonderful,
Right.
you know, experiences that he has with all these beings. And anyway, I went to his ranch once, and I paid him to do like this. I guess I think I paid him for a past life regression. It was a little expensive for me. I think it was like 150 or $200 or something like that. But I was feeling kind of desperate in my life. You know, I wanted some kind of answers or clarity about, you know, life, and, you know, I was struggling in life, you know, and I was struggling spiritually, and I was, you know, kind of desperate for something. Anyway, we did this, and it was a very wonderful experience. I kind of immediately forgot about all the money I spent on it, even though at first I felt like, I was like, I don't know if I should spend this money. But after the fact, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did this. And he like put me in touch with what I guess is like a spirit guide for me, you know. And but initially, when he first started this thing, he kind of, him and his assistant do this sort of guided meditation with you, and they kind of get you into a relaxed state, and they call in these they invite like higher dimensional beings to come help you, basically. And they don't call on anybody specifically. They kind of wait to see who volunteers. And it's kind of a interesting divination system that they use called table tipping, combined with an alphabetical code that they use to communicate with these beings. And I thought it was really interesting. Anyways, they came, and I didn't tell them about any of that dream stuff with the freaky sexy females that were draining me, you know. But he goes, oh, you've got an entity attached to you that's kind of sucking your energy out of you. And I was like, what? And then I realized instantly what he was talking about, and that he was talking about those recurring dreams that I'd had. And I was like, oh my God, he's right, I do. And he said it's female. He said this is, you have a succubus basically attached to you that's draining your energy. And he, with my consent, invited these higher dimensional beings to please remove it. And according to him, they like take it and usher it towards the light or whatever. You know, they don't like cast it into hell or anything nasty like that. You know, it was a lot less confrontational than any spiritual activity I'd ever been involved in before in that regard. But it never happened again after that. And it was, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I can't tell you how many, because I listen to all kinds of shows, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard similar things over the years, just from all over the place, and too many different places, too many different shows and platforms for them all to be sort of arranging it all together, some giant thing where they're all, no, it's been everywhere. And yeah, this is why I don't understand why people, I have a hard time understanding why people can't accept any of this, because I'm thinking, just look around online, just find some shows, find some stuff online, some websites that have true accounts, and it's everywhere. These things happen. Just all anyway. I'm sorry, I get off on a tangent and rant about that sometimes, because it just drives me crazy that there's this. No, none of that stuff can be real.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, when it comes down to it, there's a lot of people who just can't handle these concepts, and like my partner in life, I love her, but she's like basically kind of spiritually bereft compared to me. She doesn't really believe in anything of substance that you would call a soul. She thinks that we're just these people, and that when we die, it's lights out, and her and I are kind of opposites in that regard. And she just, I'll talk about this stuff, and she doesn't like hearing about it. And the more real and creepy it sounds, the less she likes it,
Yeah.
But I think some people are just not cut out to really believe in it or want to deal with it.
Yeah. I can understand fear, and especially if you don't look into it, if you've never had an experience, or if you had one and it seemed like it was negative. But then there's other people that just don't want to believe it, because it just doesn't seem, it's not accepted science, so it can't be real. And that's the ones more so that I have I have a harder time getting together with and understanding and getting along with really well.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I guess we're also talking about possession, the idea of possession tonight. And I had a few stories about that. I'll try to briefly share if that's all right.
Yeah, whatever you're comfortable sharing is fine.
Okay, so I was raised in the church, and like the American Christian Assemblies of God Church, and we were taught about like a lot of horror stories as kids about demon possession. Basically stories they would tell kids to scare us, and especially it was in the height of the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s, and I never experienced anything in the church or as a kid or anything. I've had multiple people tell me that they saw something come over me in the past. I personally don't remember it. But I kind of have reason to believe that it really did happen. And it was associated with, I want to say, alcohol use. When, like, there were times in my life that I struggled with alcohol use a lot, and I would self-medicate with alcohol. And a couple of times, people told me that I think I was like blacked out, like I was really intoxicated. And they told me that, like, I called my mother on the phone once, and she said that when I called her, I remember making the phone call, but then I kind of blacked out at some point during the phone call. And I'm kind of assuming that I was using alcohol. I'm not really sure if I was or not, but she says that while I was talking to her, that some sort of demon monster started talking to her using my voice and telling her about all these horrible things that he was going to do to me, her son. And I do remember beginning the phone call, and I thought I was having a normal phone call with my mom. And I think I was having a rough time. I think it was a pretty emotional time in my life. And I remember ending the phone call, but I don't remember anything in between. And another time also where I got intoxicated, like I'd gone through a breakup or something, and I was like, I'm getting drunk tonight. And I got really drunk. And I don't remember a period of time. I remember starting to drink that night, and then apparently the person I was with told me I stopped behaving like Mike, and I stopped speaking, and I got real creepy, and I wouldn't talk, and it was like somebody else was controlling me. And those are the only experiences that I've had, but I kind of think there's something to the whole alcohol spirit possession concept. Like you probably heard people talk about, like that's why they call it spirits, because there is a demon associated with it. And I kind of think there's something to that. And I've known, that's kind of the extent of my personal experience as far as maybe potentially some form of possession. But I've also known people who, like, I used to date a woman who, she didn't call them demons or angels, or she called them people. She referred to them as people, but she was talking about like what I would call a demon or an angel or a spirit or a ghost or whatever. And she said that she was capable of allowing them to enter her body and be inside of her and like share that experience with them. Like she was just sharing an experience with a person who happened to not have a physical body. And she said sometimes it would be a situation where it wasn't good, and she told them they had to leave, and they did whenever she told them that. And I have reason to believe that she was telling the truth. I know that she believes that it was true. And I also know that I experienced some very amazing things with her that kind of lead me to believe that she is capable of those sorts of things. So, I don't know, I guess those are the stories that I kind of wanted to talk about tonight, but I don't know, maybe what you think about that.
Yeah, that is, that makes me think of too, how many bars and pubs are said to be haunted, to have activity in them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they seem to be everywhere. Clubs, any place like that where there's that served. They all seem to be magnets, and if you think about it, those kind of places, not always, and not that they're evil places that should not exist. I'm not saying that at all, but there can be a lot of energy that's going on there, a lot of emotions, good and bad, and it seems like a place that would be logical for someone that is literally made of energy and consciousness to go to get more energy, to maintain whatever their form is, and to interact with people that are in the physical plane. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I've heard similar accounts of people who and again, we were talking about tonight earlier in the show that we recorded earlier, where people that have had experiences with inviting, whether they invited or not, having another being in them that wanted alcohol, and then they drank it, but then when this other being left them, they did not show any signs of having had any alcohol, and it just blows my mind. That's one of the things I keep on coming back to tonight, is that whole idea. But
oh wow!
But yeah.
So it's almost like the being inhabited them and wanted to experience the feeling of being intoxicated. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that too. I mean, is it how much of it is they wanted that sense of that, and then they wanted that sense of it. Who knows? I mean, how far the desire goes as far as do they like the taste of it that much?
Yeah.
And they just wanted to be able to have that experience of taste again. I think that's probably part of it. But then, yeah, it's really, I don't know. There's something to that, and I've heard multiple accounts of that, and yeah. But then, like I said, bars and restaurants. There's just so many of those places that especially the further back you go, the older the place is. Like over in the UK, I can't tell you how many stories I've come across over the years about pubs that have activity in them, and to this day, and it just blows my mind that happens.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
I had the strangest experience with that. So, I mean, I'm not sure if it was exactly tied to it, but so I went out to literally it was like a hole in the wall bar, and it was like this small building, and I went with many of my friends, and we were all visiting there and hanging out. And there's like a pool table and a karaoke going on, and it was literally this small little place. And I came home that night. It was within walking distance of where I lived, and it was some time ago. And I came home, and I went upstairs to my bedroom, and I just recently bought a house, and it was fairly new to me, the neighborhood and everything else. And I went to bed up in my room, and I woke up, and I could see, like in the bedroom that I had, this was a dream, albeit it was a dream, but I would think it was a dream. But anyway, I woke up, and in the upstairs of in the way this house was designed, the upstairs bedroom had like an alcove, a sort of recession in the wall that went to the window, and I saw a person standing there, and they had like sort of reddish brown hair and a bandana on, and they were wearing like a vest over a t-shirt and jeans. There's a person literally just standing in my room in the dream that I accounted, like the way that I saw it. And I was like, "Who are you?" And they said like something to the effect of that I'm gonna stay right here, was the effect. And it was as if like what I took away from it was, or what it felt like to me was that this person, and they described too that they played the drums and things like it was the most bizarre dream. And I thought to myself that this person had come from the bar. It was the most strangest thing. That the spirit, it felt like to me in my dream that the spirit had come. The next day. It wasn't immediate. It was literally like the next day I was thinking about it. And I was relaying it to myself. But it was as if I had brought home an entity from the bar. And it was like, that was what the energy was. And they looked like they were from a different period as well. They literally looked like not even of this time. And it was just this, they were just, it was just a spirit that's attached from that bar. And I saw them and had somehow come with. And this idea of attachment is not uncommon, and it happens, and it comes and kind of goes. And I believe it's fairly common in a way,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you go to any AA meetings that you'll talk to people who will recount very similar stories.
Yeah. Yeah. We may have to cover, I think, as well. I have to start making a list of topics we need to cover at some point, because I think attachments are a whole related topic to the whole channeling and possession thing. Not the same, obviously, but related.
Definitely
Yeah.
attachments, I think, are a very interesting topic. It's not just with people, it's with items as well.
Yeah.
So people pick items and it attaches with those. So if people have them in their lives, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that'd be a fun one to do. So I'll add that to the list of things. So, but yeah. We have another person here raising their hand. So let me get them on here. And White like a ghost, you're welcome to stay if you want to, or you're welcome to head out. It's up to you.
That was about all I had to talk about. So I'll keep listening, but I'll jump off the stage. Thank you. You guys have a good night. I love you guys.
Thank you. You as well. Take care. And thank you for joining. And yeah, so let me see here. So let me get MJ onto the stage here, I believe. Let me check. Unless it's that's all. I have streamer mode on, so it's hard to tell sometimes. But we will see how it goes. MJ, there we go. Yep, I was right. Welcome.
So how are you guys doing tonight?
Okay, thank you for joining us again on this show.
You guys were talking about possession?
Yeah, sort of possession and channeling. Sort of talking about the differences and just the whole topic. Yep.
So good to see you, MJ. It's good to see you. Hey.
Well, I have a story. I used to work in a bar off and on for 20 years, and it was quite haunted. Quite haunted. And I think the ghost possessed the bar because I used to do bartending, security, whatever they needed. And one night, and nobody spoke about it, they'd see this little Mexican man. The bar's big and square, okay? And off to the right-hand corner, because the DJ's off to the left. No, the back door's off to the right. Just beyond that would be just like this little corner. And I was back there walking around, and this girl comes up. She says, "You see that man in the corner over there?" And I said, "No, not really." She said, "A little Mexican man sitting there." And suddenly she turns around and he walks out the back door. Of course, he walked through the door. Type of thing. But I think these ghosts had some sort of it was a trail, because one night I felt because I used to clean the bar at night too. That was sort of the last latter part of working there. And I turned around, I was mopping the floor. It's a big cement floor, so I'm mopping and cleaning and wiping stuff down and getting everything smelling good again. And I just flipped around and I saw I had 30 people staring at me. I got so uncomfortable. And I sat there and I was like, and I had to clean, mop the dance floor and put a little wax on it and get it all shiny. And I just flipped around and stopped. And I was just staring. I didn't see anybody, but it was like somebody is watching me. Now, the last event, there was one event, not the last one, but the one event that really got me, and it had to be demonic, was we had a horseshoe bar, okay? And behind the horseshoe bar, you go down 2 steps in this other room, and it's like for storage, and they wanted microwave hot dog or little snack stuff. You could fix it back there and then bring it to them. I'm halfway through, and I had some big pots to wash and clean up back there or something. So I'm cleaning, and all of a sudden you hear this clap. It went pap pap pap, right on the other side of the horseshoe bar, right in the middle of it, and I just froze. I freaking froze. And I just slowly backed up and looked down. I got to the stairs, went up, and I'm looking around. And you could just feel this just ominous energy, oh my God. So I got back in there, and you hear the pap, pap, pap. And it's three claps. It was about a little after 3 in the morning. So I went up there again, and I texted the owner, and it did it 3 times in a row.
Wow.
And I made a joke of it. I said, somebody out there really wants a drink. And that was when it did it the 3rd time. So I just texted the owner, said, "You know what? I'm out of here. There's, something going on in this bar and I can't see it. I'll come back, in the morning before you open up and finish cleaning up, but I can't stay here tonight." So whatever was in there, basically they felt like they possessed that area, or the bar, because it's a bar. I mean, you bring a lot of negative energy into a bar. But it
Right.
absolutely was taken over, and you could always, if you're back there talking like in the afternoon for like the happy hour shift, you could hear somebody playing pool, but there's nobody back there playing pool. And every bar I worked in had the exact same thing. You'd hear the pool balls clicking each other, hitting each other, and there's nobody back there playing. And I worked in an afternoon bar, no, a morning bar, 6 a.m. And I had a certain shift of people would come in after all the other bars close. They'd all pile in and they're all, wasted. It's like, one more drink, whatever. And we're all sitting there talking, and all of a sudden you hear the pool table. Like somebody actually, hit one ball and it racked around and hit the other balls. So I think that the bars pull in that type of energy because people are drinking and they're not in control of their consciousness at that point. So I think it attracts that, but I think that's also along the lines of possession because they're taking the building to a certain extent.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, sometimes you hear about that. You have that one person, like in your case, it was you, but I've had other accounts I found online of people that are doing that similar kind of job, cleaning up a place either before or after it's open, and they get in one way or another they get chased out. They hear sounds, they feel presence there that's watching them. Objects will move, and they'll decide, okay, I'm done here for now. I'll come back next time and finish off next time. And
they only got me out with the clapping. That was like too strong.
right.
And it was 3 a.m. It's 3 claps, 3 times. I thought, I don't have the energy. I'm tired. You can have the place for the night. And then that's the only ever happened. But that's the only time it ever really got me. I mean, it was real clear. It was loud.
Yeah. That makes me think of, every once in a while here, I don't know what it's from, but it reminds me of the sound of like a pool ball rolling off of the table. I'll hear the sound of it rolling and then falling and hitting a hardwood floor. Well, everything around here is carpeted except for in the kitchen and the bathroom and the entranceway. And there's nothing there with a table with a ball that's going to fall off the table and roll onto the bathroom floor. And you can feel the vibration of the floor too, if you're close enough to where it happens. I'm starting to wonder now if there was either a restaurant here, like just way back when, or if someone at one point, I mean, these are small apartments, but I guess it could technically fit, had a pool table and they just played in here or something. Or there was a house that I guess that had one.
Could be. Because at one time I felt like there was like 30 people back there looking at me. It could be an Indian tribe that was traveling through because it was in Phoenix, Arizona at one time. I mean, it was in Phoenix, Arizona. And you would have stuff like that. People would report that through the city.
Yeah.
But it could have been a band of ghosts just kind of going along. But they were just, staring at me.
Yeah. I had that in I think I mentioned this before. There's a house that it used to belong to my dad and my she was my stepmom. They got divorced a while ago. But I stayed there for a week one time when I was in my early 20s to watch the house for them while they went out of state somewhere for a trip, vacation of some kind. And I've never really cared for traveling because of my low vision and getting around and stuff like that. I don't care for that a ton. So I was happy to just have a house to myself and hang out and watch DVDs all day and, listen to my dad's massive CD collection of music all day, whatever. And I noticed in the house in the evening, it would start to get packed. It would feel like there were just people that were just coming in and the house was filling up and they were all looking at me like, what are you doing here? Why are you the only one here? And the only way I could stand that feeling was to always have music or the TV playing.
Yeah.
I had to have something to listen to that was giving off that sound and extra energy. Otherwise, it was just, I did not like that. I never watched the house again because of that. Because it was just like, dang. In the evening, once it started to get, the sun started to go down, I was like, no, I don't like that. There's people coming over. They're coming back home or who knows what. And yeah, didn't care for that.
Yeah, it's a little unnerving. It's like my house here. I'm in now. We've talked about this before. Where I had to deal with this demonic energy that kept coming around, and I literally had to clean the house out, take everything out, and put bare essentials in there and live there. And I lived on the other side of the mobile home, and I used the kitchen bathroom, but I did not go into the bedroom for a long time. And about 4 or 5 months, it finally felt like whatever energy was there was dissipated. And what I started thinking about was the people that lived here before, and then my parents lived here, but they lived here a long time. My parents were here 20 years. And the people had it, I think, 30 years on top of that. So you've got two people living in it for that much time. They're building up their own vortex of energy in the house. And it took me, probably since I've been living here, 8 years. And I finally did, after that little, demon thing in the bedroom, I just pulled everything out and it had nothing to attach to. And what I started realizing was I had cleaned the house out. I took all my mom's old stuff, sheets, chest of drawers, and I just threw the sheets out. I burned up the chest of drawers because they were broken down. They weren't any good. So I just started burning everything. And I cleaned it out that way, and then I moved my stuff back in, and I slowly set up each room the way I wanted it, and I left it that way. And since then, I've had no real problem because I claimed my space. And I think that's part of what needs to be done. If you have that going on in your house, you have to claim your house as your space, and it's not their space.
Yeah, because that reminds me when I was talking about that experience in the house. Even when I was there with my dad and his wife at the time, and my half sister, they all had rooms on the second floor, but the room that I was in was on the ground floor. And so when I had to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, that entire ground floor, there was no one. If there was no one down there, none of my family was down there, I would get that same feeling like there's just this place is packed. And I was okay because I was like, well, I'm just going to the bathroom. You'll be fine. You're like, don't bother me. I won't bother you. I'm just gotta do what I gotta do. And I knew my family was upstairs. They were all upstairs, but it was like whoever was there was like, okay, they're all upstairs. All right, awesome. Now the floor is ours again. And I have that feeling every time I get up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom. That would happen.
Oh, here's one for you. Oh my God, the same bar. This bar was, it happened all the time when I was cleaning it. And everybody'd leave, and it was when they stopped the smoking thing where you couldn't smoke in a bar anymore. It was illegal. You had to be outside the bar. Okay. Well, they had a patio for that. Okay. They had a little patio out there. And it was parking spaces, but they fenced it all in. And they built a little storage bin where we keep some of the buckets and mops and stuff like that. And we're all in there. And usually sometimes everybody would say, the owner would be there. Jack, come on, everybody up. Belly up to the bar, and you get like a couple of drinks. We'd sit there because maybe it was a tough night at Saturday night. We just needed to unwind before anything. So we're all back there talking, and had our drinks, whatnot, and it was time to get busy. So I started getting, running around, and we had French doors to the patio, so they're both open, and it's Phoenix, so it's hot. And we're sitting there, and I heard a woman. The gates were locked to the back parking lot, so nobody could get in. And I heard this woman's voice. Just mumbling back there, saying something like she's talking to herself or something. And somebody else heard it at the same time I heard it. So we sort of went, sheepishly walking back, went to the doors, and we're peeking. And when we got to because you're really quiet, we got to the doors, and we kind of turned to the right because it was turned on the right, and we could still hear her talking. So we signaled somebody, go out the front door, go out the front door, see out the front door. There was nobody outside. We could hear somebody in there mumbling. And so I went up and got the lock and locked the lock and, started getting my stuff. And that was it. It just stopped after that. But you could clearly hear a woman in there mumbling. We thought it was a homeless person, a homeless woman or something. But it was just back there mumbling. So whatever the parking, because it used to be some sort of business before this, so a woman bought it and turned it, it was a bar. It's always been a bar. Bought it and had to shut it down and restart it. And you just don't know prior to that. Oh, it used to be a gas station. That's it. It used to be a gas station before that. And you don't know who may have been wandering through, a homeless person or anybody that had been killed in the area, and that's their area where they live in. I would say more of a homeless person because that's who it sounded like. And they lived in the area that they claimed that area as a ghost, or they're still hanging out there. And that's part of their haunt where they used to go, but it was a gas station at the time.
Yeah. Yep. I believe it. That's the whispering mumbling thing is always so strange when it happens. I've had that a few times over the years. A few times in that same house, actually.
Really?
Yeah. The first time I heard it, I was in the dining room. I think it was the first time. It was one of the few times I heard it there. And my dad had gone somewhere with the rest of the family real quick, and he was going to come back and get me and take me home. I forget where. I think I was already an adult at that point. I don't drive, so whenever I go anywhere, I have to have a ride. And so he was going to be right back. So the house was empty except for me, and I was packing my things up and putting things away that I was going to take back home with me. And I was in the dining room, and I heard these two voices sounding like little girls, younger girls, laughing and whispering to each other. And it was coming from the stairwell leading up to the second floor. And that stairwell, whenever I'd be sitting in that living room or dining room, I'd always feel like we were being watched from this one place on that stairwell, on the stairs. And that's where I heard those whispering from. And of course, I knew there was no one there. And I had one half sister, not two, and she wasn't there. And it didn't sound like her anyway. And of course, as soon as my family got back, everything stopped. And it was so weird because it was right there, but I still couldn't understand what they were saying. And it wasn't an evil laughter. It wasn't a horror movie kind of laughter thing. It was just they were having fun. It was the funniest thing. Like, I wasn't really afraid. It was just startling, and it was just weird. But I heard that 2 more times in that same house. And the last time I heard it, it was amazing in a way because I was hearing it from the space just below the ceiling of the guest room that I was staying in. And I was laying in bed and trying to fall asleep and not doing well because I don't sleep well at night usually. And I was looking right at the space where I was hearing the sounds, and it was right in the middle of the air beneath the ceiling of the room. So, and there was a ton of other stuff. I think I've covered that in a show here before somewhere in the archives now. But yeah, there was a lot of activity in that house.
Oh, and with the cleaning thing.
I think that disturbs things because everything sits as it is, and it can be attached to. And then you take something and move it and clean it, put it over here. It's suddenly not, you move the attached item over here. And that arouses whatever's attached to it. With a haunted house I first lived in, when I moved down to my house, we would periodically clean. That was a big house. And just get the dust and sometimes rearrange the furniture. We knew that night we were going to have activity because things got rearranged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that you can see that with any kind of remodeling renovations too. How often do you hear about that?
Oh, you remind me of one. Way back when. Way. 22, 23 years old. Everybody was talking about it. And I knew some people, because I was working with horses early on and with a woman, and she had kids and 4-H kind of thing. Oh, you got to go see this house. You got to go see this house. Okay. And it was just an old Civil War house, is what it was. It was white, and it's an ugly house. It's just a basic house, really. Windows, door, that's roof. And most of your Civil War houses, the plantation houses, actually are very ugly. They're not very big or pretty. So we're sitting there, and it's not this open, this big field. There's nothing around it. And everybody was coming up to it. All these people standing around thought, oh, we're going to see something. What the owner did, he bought it. And what he did is he scraped the white paint off, right? Okay. And he painted it yellow, canary yellow. This is yellow. he painted it, and one week he came back the next weekend, and it was old, worn out white paint.
Oh
It
wow!
looked white. And he said you can go in there and you can hear the slaves. Used to chain the slaves together up in the attic, but they chained them up at night, and you can hear the chains rattling. He said he was in there. He was talking about it, and then he got kind of disturbed about it because he's like, nah, he started doing renovations and stuff like that. I don't know if he ever finished with it, but he couldn't get the color to stick.
Wow. Yeah. Yep. I've heard of that. I've heard not to that degree, but I've heard similar things. I think the most common thing I've heard of is places where there's a spot of blood on a wall or on a floor, where the story is that it'll always come through no matter what you put on the floor.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, I don't know how that's or handprints on walls. I've heard of that as well. But yeah,
I get odors. Like that's an odd odor kind of thing.
That is one thing. That's one thing I'm very lucky. The only reason I'm glad that I have no sense of smell is because of that. Is I don't have to worry about any of that kind of thing.
Yeah, the devil's going to come out, but evil's going to come out and knock you on the head then.
Yeah, it's got to be either sight or sound, and I get plenty of. I've had enough of that, so. But yeah, it's it always too makes me wonder, like, how often have I gone to places and someone was there trying to contact me through some kind of a scent, and I just had no idea because I have no sense of smell. I think that'd be kind of funny in a way. But
yeah, it would be. It's kind of like being colorblind or something. You can't hear.
Yeah, yeah. Someone in a window in a building across the street from me waving at me, and I can't even see them. So, although with that, I think they can. It depends on if they're trying to do that. The way they're trying to do that, though, because if they're projecting directly to my mind, then I do see them.
Oh, have you ever seen the movie Mirrors?
No, I have not, but I'm curious about that.
They have mirrors and mirrors too, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but it's very much about what we're talking about.
Because I've had a couple of experiences with mirrors, so.
Oh, yeah, I have too.
Yeah, I that same guest room that I used to stay in that house, my former stepmom had two old. They look like old mirrors. I don't know if they were, but she had them facing each other for a while in that room.
All right.
Your
And
aunt did?
like that. I did not like walking in between those mirrors to get to that bed.
Oh no.
It was not. They weren't facing the bed, but they were still. Yet it was a long rectangular room kind of thing.
Well, maybe your aunt knew some things. Was it your aunt that had that?
No, it was my former stepmom that had them.
Okay, yeah, maybe she knew something then.
I have no idea, but and they didn't stay there forever that way, which I'm glad, because man, for that brief time they were like that, I was not happy with that, and that was even before I hadn't even started doing any research yet, so I had no preconceptions about it either. So to me, that's like that is always amazing when you don't know anything about any of this stuff, and yet you still it's like I don't like that, and you get that feeling even without that.
Yeah, I don't have, like I said before, I don't have anything reflective except for my windows. I hang nothing on the walls.
Well, it's just so common. There's so many stories of that, of either mirrors or windows.
Yeah, see, I never thought about it though. I just don't do it.
Right.
From early on, I never did it.
Yeah.
I don't like things hanging off the wall. I have a pet peeve about that.
Yeah, I don't care for that either. I never care for that either. The idea of anything hanging off of anything. But yeah, no, it's and I'll never forget. I've only had one experience with my bathroom mirror, and I'm glad. I think there was someone hanging out in that one night because I remember I woke up and I had to use the bathroom, and I knew before I even went in there, I had this feeling like I did not want to look at the mirror, and so I just made sure I was not looking in that direction at all the entire time. That one time that night, as I was doing that, and I left the room and I didn't look at the mirror, and the next day it was fine. and I've never had the problem with that mirror like that again. But there was someone there that one time.
Mm. I don't clean mine. I have a bathroom mirror. I don't clean it. I mean, I'll clean it sorta, but I leave it smeary.
Yeah.
If it's super clean, I just feel vulnerable. So I don't. I mean, it looks really bad, but I feel more comfortable with it the way it is. It's like there's a veil in between. I can see myself, but you can't see me, kind of thing.
Right.
You guys, I had the weirdest experience with a mirror one time. So I was at the time I was not, but at the moment I had been experimenting with so many different, like, I guess just rituals and things like that. And in this house I lived in, it just so happened that the bathroom mirror was one bathroom in the house, and the bathroom mirror was aligned with the fireplace in the room on the opposite side of the wall, which was the bedroom. And I slept in there. So it was really odd. So the fireplace side was the same side on the opposite wall in the bathroom the mirror was on. And there was this one occasion where it was very late at night, and I went in there, and I was just washing my hands and, doing typical bathroom things. And I looked up into the mirror, and I didn't notice it initially, not immediately. It was like first glance, and then I went back down to like what I was doing on the kitchen counter with my hands and just washing my hands. And I looked up again, and then it struck me that there was no reflection in the mirror. It was literally just the bathroom. It was passing a matter of literally, and it was passing of a matter of like seconds, but the mirror was reflecting the room, and I didn't see myself in the mirror. It was the most bizarre thing.
Ooh.
And and I literally just left the bathroom. And there were so many different things in that house. It was this house that was built, I guess, probably in the, I assume 1920s. It was a farmhouse. All the houses in the area were in the old district in town, and the city that I was living in. So most of the houses were from 1908, thereabout. But, it was the most bizarre thing. And then in the bedroom itself, on the opposite wall of that bathroom, opposite of the mirror where the fireplace was, which was never in use. It was never in use. But I kept books, of course, over the fireplace on that mantle. And one night in particular, I remember all of those books, just like, there was so many bizarre occurrences, but all those books, I was laying in bed and I heard this noise. And I sat up, and the books just literally like folded over, like they just, like something pushed them and they all just rolled over. I've never had it happen in that house again. I never had that happen again. And it could have been completely psychological, but for whatever bizarre reason, like I say, I looked up in the mirror and there was no reflection in it. And I did a lot of research about this. And there are so many different accounts of that happening, and there are explanations for it, but it was the most bizarre thing. And of course, it could have been just the way that I was perceiving it. It could have been a hallucination of sorts. I didn't have the lights on in the bathroom. I had like a candle in the bathroom, this sort of thing. After that, though, I looked a great deal into like mirror scrying and things like that, and it was very fascinating. But no, at least in my experience, there was literally, I looked in the mirror and I had no reflection. And there's a lot of ways to interpret that, but it was the most bizarre thing concerning mirrors. It was very bizarre.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've never heard of that. I've heard of people, of course, looking in the mirror and seeing another figure in their room, and then looking back and it's not there. I've even heard of. Sorry?
Exactly. I mean, I've heard of that too. People like they're seeing something that isn't actually there in the room.
Right.
But in this case, I was seeing what was in the room that was not in the mirror myself. It was very bizarre. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's all coming from within, without. So I accept that too. Unless you want to, I mean, unless you are putting unless we want to put like a paranormal twist on it, or a psychoanalytical twist on it, which is I mean, I don't know how else you would interpret these things. But ironically, like, yeah, in most cases, people see things in the mirror that are not there actually in the physical present world. But in this case, in this scenario, it was, there I am standing, and yet I am not there in the reflection. It was bizarre. And that's obviously like a feast of sorts for psychoanalytical analysis or whatever. But nevertheless, that was the case,
Yeah,
and
that's wild.
it's bizarre. Absolutely. But I mean, just an account for the idea about the mirror interpretations, things like that. It's very bizarre.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes what I think is, because I wonder about that too, because I've had that happen. And are we projecting through ourselves onto the mirror? And then it's basically on a loop, and we see what projecting from our third eye or from our body onto the mirror. It's not us, it's something else. And is it coming through us to reflect on the mirror, or is it on the other side of the mirror? Kind of thing.
Right.
Is that,
Right.
is it actually there in the room with you, but it's separated from you enough that you see something else in the mirror and it's not you?
The house was so ridiculous. We did seances in that house. We did Ouija board in the house. There were people who were living there prior to us that had buried things underneath the house. The house itself was, oh yeah, literally within living there about a month, a man came to knock on the door and said that he had left some things in the house, and they were under the floorboards of the living room. And they were,
Oh.
yeah. So, I mean, it was an ironic experience, but the house itself, I was living in an apartment initially next to the house that was painted all black. The walls of the apartment I was staying in they had painted the entire apartment black. And I had heard that it was an old house built as a Victorian home. And they found shoes and things like that in the wall of that Victorian home. This was in downtown of a city I lived in. And next door to it was this house I am talking about. And the people who were living there were literally powering the house from an extension cord that was plugged into the cellar of the apartment complex / house I was living in. And they got kicked out. And the people that were there were doing occult. They were doing, I guess you call it just witchcraft. They were doing rituals. There were so many different stories about them and what they were doing. When that house when they were emptied out, and I found the landlord of that house and the apartment complex that was a house also made into apartments that I was living in, I wanted to rent the house. And I rented it. And the house itself was spray painted. There were all kinds of things inside. The people were wild. They were living in there. And like I say, there were so many bizarre experiences. There would be doors. There was whistling in the house. There were barking and howling dogs that weren't there, that were heard within the house. People would hear each other's voices. Yes. There was a lot of that. And it was incredibly, I guess you'd call it fascinating, but it wasn't a good experience. There were bad things too. And eventually, I lived there for about 4 years, and I moved. But no, I mean, that's where that happened. This was not a normal. I mean, I don't know what a normal house would look like, but there were circumstances around the experience that I had was saying what I'm saying about. I went in there. the lights were low. It was late at night. And it was like there was nothing. The mirror was not reflecting. Didn't reflect I didn't see myself in the mirror. And it was so bizarre because at first I didn't even notice it. I literally just looked up and then looked back down, and then I looked back up again and was like, for like a few moments, didn't see myself. And then I did, but it was like the most bizarre thing.
It was like something
was-
was in the way.
There was nothing. Yeah, I just saw the bathroom when I looked up into the mirror. It was like a wall mirror. And it was connected to, I think, though, to the other room that had the fireplace in it. Because, like I say, in the other room opposite of that was the bedroom. And I hated sleeping in that bedroom. I actually wouldn't even sleep in that bedroom. I'd often sleep in the living room. Because it was just so uncomfortable in there.
Yeah.
And it was the strangest thing. But mirrors, I do think, are certainly some type of an extension and a portal. Definitely. And can be used that way, no doubt. But this is kind of a whimsical story. It was just kind of strange. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. That's it's funny, not involving mirrors, but my bedroom I used for a storage room because there's someone else that is in there at night, and it's not the same as the shadow figure that was in my closet that eventually moved out. There's someone else in there that I can always sense. I used to always be able to sense when I was laying there in bed at night, and they did not want company. And I don't know if they're still there. I don't even know. Actually, I can't say that it wasn't that same figure because I had moved out of there before that figure left. So maybe it's not the same way anymore now. I don't know. But I never liked sleeping in that bedroom. And I found out years later that my younger half sister on my mom's side, I have one on each. My parents, after they got divorced, they married other people. And my mom and my former stepmom both had daughters at right around the same time, like within a month of each other. But my sister on my mom's side would come over once a week in the summertime. Her dad would drop her off in the mornings, and she would sleep a couple hours or so after she got back here, because it'd be at like 5 a.m. they'd drop her off. And I found out after the fact that she never cared for sleeping in that room either. She was okay. She did fine, but she didn't really like it. And I only found that out after I had told her about the weird things that had happened there. And this was after she'd stopped staying there, obviously. I wasn't going to tell her while she was doing that. But yeah, it's when there's a presence, I think you can tell. And I definitely felt that there. And so now I use that room for storage. And I'm fine with that because I like to be able to get to my PC when I'm going to bed and getting up. I have podcasts or whatever playing on it, so it's not a problem. But the reason for that was I didn't care for staying in that room at night.
This was some time ago, but I can completely relate. That room that I'm talking about that was supposed to be my room. I was supposed to sleep in there, but it was the very front room off of the living room. And it was this big room. Probably wasn't a bedroom initially. It had a fireplace in it, and it was a big bedroom. And it was just, I just couldn't sleep in there. It was the most bizarre thing. I could sleep in any of the rooms in the house. I could sleep in the living room, any of the other bedrooms in the house. But that one particular room, it was just this feeling when I'd go in there to lay down, you'd feel like a building up in the night. Like I'd be laying there and the lights are off and I may have a nightlight on or something. But you could literally, I would just feel like there was a thickness growing in the room, as if there was somebody else in there. It's an undeniable feeling, as if it's a feeling that you're not alone in right now. There's somebody else here. It's like if two people are standing in a room and you're trying to pretend like the other person is not there.
Yeah.
It was that kind of feeling. But there was definitely a feeling like that. And I could leave that room go into the living room, go into any other bedroom, and I wouldn't feel it like that. It was something to do with that particular room in the front by the fireplace. It would feel like there was somebody in there. And so I couldn't sleep in there. It was the most bizarre feeling. But it was so distinct. It was, like I say, as if you're pretending. If you're sitting, if there's say you're both sitting, there are two people sitting in an office, for example, and you're both aware that you're there, but you're trying to pretend like the other person is not there. That was the type of feeling it felt like. There was certainly somebody there, and it was that palatable, as if there literally was somebody there. And it was not necessarily, I'm not going to dismiss it could have been a figment of the imagination, but at the same time, if I went anywhere else in the house, I didn't really feel that way. So it was very strange in that way, I think.
Yeah, it is. Did you have that feeling, a weird feeling when you would just go in there in the daytime to get things, or was it only at night? I'm just curious.
It was particularly at night. I mean, during the day, I still avoided the room a little bit. I would go in there to get things. I would go in there to put, but I eventually, I mean, it became a place where I kept all my stuff, but I wouldn't sleep in there, and I didn't really stay in there.
Yeah, same
But
thing here.
I would just happen to fall asleep in the living room, and I'd sleep in the living room, or I might go to one of the other bedrooms and sleep in there, because it was not a big house, but, I just, it was the most bizarre thing. I would often just sleep in the living room. So,
Yeah.
But no, during the day, it didn't stand out. But at night, and at night, even if I was walked in there, it actually felt like I was walking in somebody else's room. There was somebody already in there. And if I laid down to go to sleep in there in my own bed, it was particularly pronounced that there was somebody else in there. But I never, I mean, it was not, it was just that kind of feeling. It didn't go beyond that much. Do you see what I'm saying? It was just this feeling that somebody in there.
Yeah.
Too.
No, definitely.
Along with me. Yeah. So strange.
It is. Yeah, definitely. No, I know what that's. It's a very similar experience, and that's that brings up a whole other set of questions to me, because is that someone that's going away for part of the day and then coming back, and are they a spirit? Or are they on some other? Are different dimensions or universes sort of feeding into each other at night more? And how or why does that work? I mean, that's just really wild to think about that whole set of possibilities.
Yes, absolutely. As far as the parallel way of it, or coming back at a certain time. So I worked the night shift in general. I was a baker and I worked the night shift. And then I quit that job and was staying home now, like I say, I mean, sometimes I'd be home at night. I wasn't working every single night, and I would have these strange experiences of sorts. But so when I quit my job, when I was I didn't quit. I just quit doing it because I was running a bakery. I was doing this and that, and I did it for years, and I was tired of doing it. And there were a lot of other things too that were involved about why I quit doing it. But I quit working nights. And within the first week or so of being home, I was laying in that room, my bedroom, and I was just, I had the lights on and everything. It wasn't even dark in there. And I heard walking. It sounded like boots, somebody wearing boots walking across wood. And I thought that a friend of mine who rented the back part of the house was on the front porch. And I actually got up because it was late and I could hear them pacing. And I was like, what are they doing outside? And I went outside of my bedroom, went into the living room, looked out the front window, and there was nobody on the front porch. The front porch ran the whole front of the house. There was nobody out there. And when I came back to my room, I still heard it. And I realized it was coming from, it sounded like it was coming from the ceiling. I know that sounds very strange, but that's what it was hard to detect exactly where it was coming from. And I was like, I think it's coming from the ceiling. When I thought that, I was very concerned that there was somebody in the attic, that somebody had somehow gotten up into the attic and was walking around up in the attic. But there was the attic was a square cut out of the ceiling in an adjacent room opposite of the dining room that literally, it was just like 12 feet up, a square cut out of the ceiling. And that went up into an attic area. That was the only access to it. And then on the outside, there was a small vent window that was probably like a foot by, like, I'd say like 24 inches by 18 inches, that sort of thing. Like, not a very big window, just vents for ventilation that you could get to by the roof. And I still was thinking that maybe somebody has, like, somehow, for some reason, gone up into the attic. That was how realistic the walking sound of somebody pacing back and forth. I was truly, at the moment when this happened, it was so real and so palatably audible. It was so obviously audible that somebody was walking around. And I still to this day, and it only happened like 3 times. And then it never happened again. So it happened within like the course of a week and a half, 3 different times in the middle of the night, hearing somebody walking around, I guess in the attic, but there was no one. I never went up and checked the attic, but there was no way I could think. And the only thing I can cover myself with is mentioning that perhaps somebody had gotten up into the attic. But I don't know how they would have done that, or why they would be doing it. But they would just walk back and forth, back and forth. And it was so audible. Like it was the strangest thing.
Yeah, that does sound like that. I've heard footsteps over the years in different places, not so much here, but I've heard them in that training center I went to that was haunted. But yeah, it's really weird when that happens. So
Yeah, I had that happen a couple times in the house I used to live in. So the first one I moved into, we had that happen a lot. A door would shut open, a light would come on, something up in the attic, somebody's at the front door, this type of thing. And of course, when you go and check, there's nobody there.
I have a funny story about the front door. I think I might have told this before in different shows, but this one day, this was around the same time that my sister was coming over once a week to stay for the day. But this one day, my mom had a dentist appointment here in this town where I live, and she brought my sister over to visit me while she was at the dentist. And so she left, and my sister was here visiting, and I think she was reading a book, and I was just playing a video game or something or other. We were just sitting, hanging out and talking here and there. And we get a knock at the front door. And this was like maybe an half hour after my mom left. And I was thinking, oh, that was fast. She's already back. And went to the door, and there was no one there. And I opened the door, and there was no one there. That's funny. Okay, whatever. Close the door. About a couple minutes later, knock on the door again. This happened 3 different times before I was getting this feeling like, okay, that's not anyone physically there. I just had a feeling, as energy or whatever. And I told my sister, just ignore it. If our mom gets here and she knocks and we don't answer right away, she'll text us or whatever. We'll call her. And as I was trying to say that, there's a knock on the door, and of course, it's my mom. But there was someone that was able to knock on that door and either be invisible or teleport away from there or who knows, whatever. And got me to open the door 3 times, and my sister heard it, so it wasn't just me. And someone was having some fun that day, apparently. So my front door also would used to randomly lock or unlock depending on where I had it, because I'd have times where I knew I was going to have people coming over, and I would unlock it so I could just tell people to come in. And I'd they would knock, and I'd tell them to come in, and they'd say, "Door's locked," and I'd be thinking, "What the heck? I know I unlocked the door." And there were other times where I knew I had the door locked, and I would go and check on it later in the day when I was still home the whole time, and it'd be unlocked. So someone enjoyed or was trying to get attention through that door.
That is so weird. So I lived in another house, James. So what had happened at this house was the man who lived there, he was an elderly man. And I knew the man by sight. I worked in the bakery that I worked in, that I was working with and everything, and what I was doing. There was this old man, and he always wore a suit. And, he walked around downtown and everything. The house he lived in, well, it turned out that the neighbors next to him were this young couple, and they wanted to use his phone on one occasion. And he let him in to use his phone. This was a city. They hit him and knocked him down, and when he fell, it caused him to have, he broke his hip or something, because he's an elderly man. And they tried to rob him of his wallet and things like that, but he didn't have anything. But he died later on in the nursing home after this fall that he had. And the house, this was his house, and I moved into it. It was packed full of Popular Mechanic magazines and all sorts of things.
Sounds like the dogs want to talk.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem.
I have 4 of them. So anyway, so I moved into this house, and it was this old house, and it was ridiculous. I mean, he hoarded a lot of things. It was like this whole process and of moving into it. So get settled in there, and then begins at the back door. I'd get up in the morning, and I'd come into the kitchen, make coffee, and the back door would be open. A little bit. And this went on a little while, or I'd go to work, and the back door would be open. It didn't happen consecutively. It would be kind of here and there. To the point where I took a butter knife, and I wedged it up into the top of the door. I mean, I would lock it, but I was like, okay, this is very strange. And so I took a butter knife, and I wedged it up into the top of the door to kind of hold it closed, because it was so strange. And on one occasion, and this was early on into moving in, I'd cleaned everything out. I'd ripped out wallpaper. I had thrown everything out of the house, except for he had a cat that lived there named Jumper, according to the neighbors. So that cat lived there, and I just lived, and literally the cat lived there, and I just lived there too. And he was like, the furniture was still in the house. So there was a table in the house, and the cat would be laying on the table. If I tried to move him, he would growl at me. I just let him live there. It was definitely his house. I let the cat live there. But on one, I opened up the cabinet to get a plate out, and there was a tooth. Literally like a back molar tooth that was laying in front of the plates. And I was just so confused by this, because there was why would there be a tooth in front of my dinner plates?
A human tooth?
A human molar tooth.
Wow.
Like it was a back tooth that you would have in the back of your mouth if you were to get your back tooth removed. It was laying in front of my dinner plates. And I took the tooth and I put it into a coffee can. And because I'm fixing to reveal something, superstitious, and I took it out to the bushes of the corner of the property, and I just put it by those bushes, and then I took 4 my saint coins and buried them at each corner of the property. And I imagine that man that had the way that he died. And it was the strangest thing though, but it was so bizarre. And there were other things that happened too, but that was the most significant thing that happened. Was just that the back door kept opening, as if somebody coming through the back door. If I locked it, if I put a butter knife up there, it didn't matter. That back door would come open. Until eventually there was literally his tooth, or somebody's tooth, somehow, for some reason. And I mean, I've thought through all of it. Maybe somebody's coming into the house. Maybe somebody is being, who knows? And that could still stand. But it was the most bizarre thing. But after that, it did taper. It did taper off. It did taper off with that. Just I don't know. You can try to interpret it every way you can, thinking that, look, I was, I don't know. It was the most bizarre. It was the most bizarre experience. And it sounds exaggerated right now because it happened in a short amount of time of like 3 or 4 months. But also it was years ago now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's so strange.
That is. Yep. I've never found anything quite like that. I can say that. But yeah, doors being open and closed and stuff like that. I still have. I mentioned this recently. Sometimes lately, I'll find one of my closet doors open, and it's one of those sliding metal closet doors that if anyone bumps into it or pushes it fast or hard, it makes a lot of sound. So I don't think it's Logan doing it because I never hear it open when it opens. I'll just find it open, even though I've been here for before it happened and after it happened, and it's like someone's just saying hi or something, like just doing that to let me know there's someone that's just saying hello or trying to get attention, and nothing else ever happens. It's bad. It's just little things like that happen around here still from time to time. So that and the ghost cat. I do have a ghost cat. So I had to stop by the other day. I think I mentioned this in a recent show, but I heard it walking around on the table behind my TV. And I thought, oh, it must be Logan. She must have been laying behind the TV. And then I hear her pawing at the litter box all the way across the apartment. And then the sounds and the TV stop. So it wasn't Logan. So
I haven't had anything happen in years. So, I mean, here and there, something odd, something interesting.
Right.
But there was sort of a simmering pot of things that happened for a period of time that are just will never leave me. The experience and it just how bizarre. And anything after that, I mean, there are strange experiences, but there was just nothing like it. It was the most bizarre thing, and there was so much, but small things. There were so many small things. Like what I was describing just now. It was a small thing. It was just so bizarre, and just didn't uncanny. It didn't make any sense. But these things are not prevalent anymore. I'm talking about probably 7 years ago. 8 years ago, and nothing since, nothing particularly. But there was also, there were little things. There were lots of little things, but it was just strange, and definitely something to do with the environment, something to do with the circumstances. All of that combined, in a way, or something.
Yeah. I said before, when I first moved into this apartment, there was a lot that happened constantly. And over the years, it has quieted down to where it's just a little thing here, a little thing there. And that's all it is here now so far. So, yeah, I think there's something to do with that energy of someone coming, someone going, people coming and going. And then the items that they have coming and going or not going anywhere. There's just as I always say, there's so many variables to all these things.
Yeah, I had one more story happening.
Yeah.
When I moved here, I had a dog, and there was a lot next to my mom's house, and the guy owned it, but he hadn't done anything with it, so it was just full of trees. And there was like a grass area, but it was full of trees. And I'm over there walking him over there. We could walk around a little bit and take him out there. And I looked up one day, and there's this huge acorn tree. And all of a sudden, you noticed that the trees started swaying at the top back and forth. And I thought, this is kind of because there's no wind. It started swaying, and I realized there was this ball of air that the taller branches were kind of batting it back and forth, like it's holding onto it, trying to balance like a crystal ball on a stand. But it was batting back and forth, and it kept getting more violent. So I started walking like back towards the house, and all of a sudden the thing it bent way back, and it slingshot this ball of air or energy, plasma, whatever it is. You couldn't really see it, but you could see it, went flying across my mother's yard and hit a cedar tree and dissipated. And I had no idea what it was about. It was just there going on. And I think somewhere up in the air up there, the sky, which I found out later, was right. There was some sort of portal up there because, I'd go out and sit in the yard at night and I'd see stuff up in that area that didn't make sense. It'd be like a big round circle, and I could see this light bouncing from this part of the circle to this part of the circle, and it started bouncing up, and then you could see where it started like becoming a tunnel, but there was a light that just bounced around in it. It didn't go outside the circle, but that happened later. But yeah, that ball of wind was like, and you could just see it. You could brush the other trees, and it hit the cedar tree, and then it just dissipated.
That's amazing. Yeah, there's a portal or the remains of a portal, just a signature, but I'm not sure which, for sure. In my bedroom that I don't use, in the main closet, in the big closet there, where the shadow person liked to stay, and where I had a dream about that girl, trying to communicate with me by giving me a dream message kind of thing. Of us sitting on the floor in that closet, and it's always there, and I can sense it, whether I'm outside the apartment, looking at that same spot, or I'm inside. I can always my eyes are drawn to it, and it's so funny because so much of what happened here, I feel like it started there, and or at least was connected to it. But now there's little things. Yeah, it's possible. Also, if you heard any little sounds, that was Logan jumping onto the table behind my TV. So that's why it's so hard sometimes to tell if it's a ghost cat or not for a second until I hear Logan somewhere else, and then I realize, that was the ghost cat. But anyway, yeah. Well, we've been going for 2 hours now, which is really amazing to me that we've already gone that long.
I'm gonna have to call it a night. My dinner is ready. I'm eating my food and everything.
Yeah, no problem. I was thinking we should probably call it here anyway. So, well, thank you all, and thank you, Jen, and thank you all. Thank you, MJ, and everyone that called in as well. Yeah, thank you all for being here, and that's gonna do it for tonight. So everyone, take care, and I'll talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Have a great night.